The Growtac control levers are officially out. They're on the Velo Orange store. Some of you guys have been asking what's been my long-term experience with them so far. Just a quick recap, what's unique about these shifters is that although they look like clicky index shifters, they are in fact friction shifters. I've got this right shifter set up and it's connected to a Shimano Q's rear derailleur. So road style shifter, modern mountain bike rear derailleur, not a problem. They've got a great ergonomic shape, a little bit on the smaller side compared to modern shifters, and they are campy style. So the big lever pushes it into the easier gear, and the button here on the thumb moves it to a harder gear. If you want to see some shots of installation and some of the quirks in setting it up, definitely watch my first video. So how has it held up? You know what? One of my big concerns was the durability of the levers. They were a plastic-like material. I'm not quite exactly sure what they're made out of. They feel surprisingly light, so at first they didn't inspire much confidence, but actually that hasn't been an issue. No chips, no breaks. You know, I'll lean the bike down on the ground. You know, I don't baby my gear per se, and so far, not a problem. The shifter does have some quirks. For example, there's an adjustment to push this back, but I still haven't found the appropriate size screwdriver. And speaking of screws, there's just all sorts of like tiny screws to lose. So if you do get this and work on it, be very careful, be methodical, lay out a big mat, because some of the screws are really, really small. And if you lose them, you're kind of SOL. In terms of the shifting experience, I'd mentioned in my first video that it felt weird at first because there was no kind of tactile feedback. There's no ratcheting or anything. It's just like one smooth motion, both inwards and outwards. I have gotten used to that. It's not a big thing. Some people wondered, you know, how hard or easy is it to get it into gear because it is friction. And it's actually surprisingly easy. I feel like the more gears you have, the easier it actually gets. Like I'm running an 11-speed cassette back there. It almost works like magic. You know, you shift it and the rear derailleur will find its place. In some ways, I think the more gears you have in the rear, the easier it is to not get hung up between gears and have that chain rub because it'll just kind of snap into place. That said, I did run into a bit of an issue. As you can see, I'm still using it here on the right side, but on the front derailleur here, I've actually switched to a bar end shifter. It kind of broke or malfunctioned or it just stopped working. And that's really what I wanted to talk about because some of you might experience this problem. In particular, if you buy both the right shifting and the left shifting model. I've had no issues with shifting the rear derailleur, but the front derailleur did become a little problematic. So let's talk about it. Okay, so when you get your shifter, you're gonna get a box of lots of interesting plastic parts that you don't usually get with other shifters. Thankfully, there is kind of this parts list here. And what makes this whole thing work are these guys, these plastic barrels. It's gonna come in a plastic bag like this, and they're actually connected, and you have to cut them with a razor or something and break them up into two separate parts like so. So the way this works is you've got different diameter options for these, and that'll determine how much cable is pulled as you're shifting. You have to do a bit of an operation with the shifter. Highly recommend doing it on the table for your first time. But basically you have to pick the radius that you want and install it. And they're like these very small set screws that get it around the rotating mechanism. Ultimately, the way this works is you'll put the cable on this rotating barrel and the barrel will rotate as you shift. The first kind of issue is that when you get the right side shifter, it comes with a variety of sizes. You get some larger diameter barrel ones. I put in the largest diameter barrel on mine just so I can use any shifter and not have to deal with it ever. However, when you get the left side shifter, which actuates the front derailleur, it only comes with the barrel that's installed. So if you want to increase diameter, you have to harvest the parts from the right shifter. I assume that you buy both at the same time, so that shouldn't be an issue. You'd have that option, but that's the first thing. The default barrel is like very, very small. And ultimately what I found is that when you've got the smallest barrel in there, you know, the cable has to make this really sharp turn. If there's any kind of friction in the housing, or the friction may build up over time, you know, any kind of significant amount of friction in that housing, like there's a tendency for the cable to just pop out of the barrel. So you can see the connection here is slotted, and it was fairly tight enough to hold the cable in there. But after enough uses, the steel cable was starting to abrade the slot. So it took even less friction for this to just kind of pop out. Again, this didn't happen right away. This took a series of months. So ultimately I swapped this out for a larger diameter barrel one, which helped for a little bit, but then the problem still persisted. I'm not quite sure why this is the case. I suspect that maybe the derailleur spring on the front is somehow overpowering the ability of the barrels to hold the cable in place. And this is exacerbated when you have the small size barrels, because it's going around such a tight corner that it just wants to pop out of that slot. But yeah, on my particular bike, I'm not sure if it's because I'm routing the housing down under the bottom bracket, and that's causing some friction. Plus the little clamps that are holding the housing in place might be tight. But anyways, it's causing enough friction that the cable head is not staying in the slot. And there are signs of wear here. It's just not as tight. Like the cable can come in and out pretty freely. So what happens when that happens is, like, you've just got the loose cable head in the body. You can still shift, but clearly the cable is not being pulled forward and aft, and there's nothing's going on. I went so far as to, you know, try to clean everything, you know, clean the mud off of the derailleur, change the housing completely. But I feel like once this started to happen with this particular barrel, then it was kind of toast. Eventually I got tired with fiddling with it, and am just using the left one as a brake now, and, you know, shifting the front derailleur with a just good old-fashioned bar and friction shifter. For some reason the right shifter has had no problems. I don't know if that's because I am using the largest barrel in there, or somehow there's less friction in that housing that keeps us from, you know, backing out and popping out of the slot. But that is something to be aware of. It would be nice if this material was, you know, a little bit more durable, or maybe it was formed in such a way that there wasn't the open slit. Maybe that way would just keep the cable head in there more securely. But that's all I know. For people that are curious about the Grotac equal control levers, my right one's working just fine, but the left has kind of given up the ghost. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I might just run it as a brake lever. But let me know what you think. Hopefully this was helpful if you're considering the shifter system. I know it's expensive and you guys want to know, like, what's going to happen. Definitely check out my first video on it. I show some installation shots of what it takes to install this. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments below. If you appreciate this video, please support the channel. Join us on Patreon, buy some merch, and as always, keep the supple side down.